Imagine waking up with nothing and going to bed a millionaire. Imagine walking into a market with empty pockets and, the very next day, discovering that the money you saved for years now buys cars, houses, or land. Imagine watching your life turn upside down in a single day. Not because you won a lottery, but because the entire economic structure you trusted simply collapsed. This is a true story of a country that lived through one of the strangest, most dangerous, and unlikely events of modern history. A crisis so extreme that it created millions of millionaires overnight, people who were rich only on paper, trapped in a world where too much money meant, quite literally, nothing. To understand this surreal, almost cinematic episode, we need to revisit a moment when wealth stopped being wealth, poverty stopped being poverty, and reality stopped making sense. Our story begins in a nation crushed by debt, war, foreign pressure, and political incompetence, Germany, during the hyperinflation of 1923, an event so absurd that even today's most unstable economies would tremble in comparison. But what happened there wasn't just a financial crisis. It was a collapse of the rules that allow society to function. It was a transformation of money into illusion, value into dust, hope into despair, and the middle class into instant millionaires. If we walked through the streets of Berlin back then, we would witness scenes that feel ripped straight from a surrealist film. People hauling suitcases, sacks and wheelbarrows, not filled with food or tools, but with money. Mountains of banknotes that once could buy anything and now bought almost nothing. Children played with bundles of bills like building blocks. Families burned cash in their stoves because it was cheaper than firewood. Bakeries changed the price of bread 3 times a day. Workers raced from their jobs straight to the market because their salaries lost value within hours. And yet, in the middle of this madness, there was an almost comical irony. Everyone was a millionaire. Salaries reached millions, then billions, then trillions. Notes were printed so fast they barely had time to dry. A simple grocery run could cost 20 million marks in the morning and 200 million by evening. Within weeks, the country was circulating billion-mark notes, then 10 billion, then 100 billion, until eventually trillion-mark bills became normal. So here's the question that breaks every idea of logic. How can an entire country become millionaire and at the same time more devastatingly poor than ever? The answer lies in the psychological and mathematical nature of money. Being a millionaire means nothing if everyone is. Being a millionaire means nothing if a loaf of bread costs $500 million. Being a millionaire means nothing when your salary evaporates before you even get home. This is the most fascinating and terrifying part of the crisis. Ordinary Germans suddenly earned lottery-sized paychecks. Bank accounts ballooned with never-ending zeros. But instead of celebrating, people panicked. Money multiplied, but purchasing power vanished. What mattered wasn't how much you earned, but how fast you could spend it before it turned worthless. Still, some people did become genuinely rich. Not on paper, but in reality. A few understood what was happening before the rest. They saw dying currency as both a threat and an opportunity. They traded mountains of worthless notes for real assets. Farms, buildings, businesses, machinery, land. These were the true survivors. While everyone else watched numbers inflate and value disappear, a handful realized that the only way to escape the death of money was to convert it into anything that inflation couldn't destroy. This story is about suffering, despair, greed, luck, cleverness, and the fragility of the financial world. It shows how quickly wealth and poverty can flip, not because you worked more or less, but because the system itself fell apart. Meanwhile, daily life was collapsing. The government insisted inflation was under control, even as prices doubled in days. Economists claimed it was temporary, but no one believed them. How could you believe anything when you woke up poorer every morning? When the money paid to you at sunrise was nearly worthless by noon? When the one thing society counted on, that money had value, simply stopped being true? Hyperinflation destroys not only economies, but the psychological fabric of a nation. It creates a world with no fixed points. You can't plan. You can't save. You can't trust. Hoarding money becomes irrational because saving is losing. The only logical behavior is to spend immediately. Buy anything, lamps, pans, extra clothes, because objects hold value and the currency does not. Slowly, Society became a giant race against time. Workers demanded weekly pay, then daily pay, then pay twice a day, because no one accepted promises anymore. People lived in a state of permanent urgency. Earn, run, buy, repeat. Yet even in the chaos, there were moments that were almost absurdly comedic. Families wallpapered their homes with banknotes because it was cheaper than paint. Restaurants adjusted prices multiple times during a single dinner. Drivers carried suitcases of cash to buy fuel, and the price went up while they counted the money. These scenes feel exaggerated, but they illustrate just how deep the collapse was. The strangest result, however, was the illusion of sudden wealth. Notes with astronomical numbers appeared everywhere. 500,000 marks, 1 million, 10 million, 50 million, 1 billion. It looked like the country was drowning in wealth, as if everyone had won the lottery at the same time. But it was wealth without value. What does it mean to be a millionaire when a dozen eggs costs 8 million? What is wealth when the currency itself has no meaning? Some people understood the situation better than others. They reacted fast. They exchanged collapsing money for real goods. Old houses, entire farms, machines, shops, all bought for piles of notes people didn't even want to carry home. When the government finally replaced a hopelessly inflated mark with a new, stable currency, the rented mark, everything changed. Those who owned assets became truly wealthy. Those who held money became owners of useless paper. But this story is not just about economics. It is about human beings trying to survive when the rules of life suddenly vanish. Imagine someone who saved for decades to buy a home, watching their life's work dissolve overnight, not because of bad decisions, but because reality itself changed. That kind of loss doesn't just destroy finances. It destroys the spirit. Older generations suffered most. They had built their lives around trust in the value of money. Their savings, their stability, their sense of future, all turned to dust. Younger people adapted faster, improvising, spending quickly, exploiting opportunities. Some saw the crisis as the end. Others saw it as an unexpected doorway to a different kind of future. Hyperinflation even changed relationships. Marriages collapsed. Families split. Many emigrated. Others sold everything, even heirlooms. Yet, ironically, the crisis also brought some communities closer. Neighbors trading food, families helping families, workers sharing whatever they could. The world learned a permanent lesson from this. Money only has value because people believe it does. When trust dies, value dies. When value dies, civilization shakes. Eventually, Germany restored order by introducing a new currency built not on gold, but on something far more important: trust. Prices stabilized. Salaries stabilized. Meaning returned. But the haunting question remains. How can a country become full of millionaires overnight, only to realize those millions mean nothing? Because money is a collective belief, a shared illusion, a fragile agreement. When that agreement breaks, money becomes a ghost. This is why the story of 1923 is still relevant. Many nations have faced echoes of this disaster. Hungary, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, among others. The pattern is always the same. When governments lose control, when spending outpaces production, when trust collapses, the currency dies. Hyperinflation exposes our deepest vulnerability. The world functions only because we trust the future will look like the present. When that trust disappears, everything collapses. The past, the present, the future. And yet, Germany rebuilt. It became stronger than before. The trauma shaped generations and deeply influenced its economic discipline. The obsession with stability that defines modern Germany was born in these flames. Today, the photos from 1923. Children playing with stacks of money, workers pushing wheelbarrows of notes, feel surreal. But there are warnings. Hyperinflation is not impossible. It is simply rare, and it returns whenever trust dies. In the end, the crisis that created millions of instant millionaires remains one of the most powerful chapters of economic history, not because of the money printed, but because of the lives reshaped, the lessons learned, and the silent fear it still awakens in every society that watches its own economy tremble.